I left my tripod out for the past few days, and it's got residences. So there is a spider inside here, and also further down there's a slug. I don't know whether the spider and the slug have a beautiful friendship, but yeah, I might have to tip them out of there. Hello and welcome back to the farm. It is a pretty nice day today. It's been really hot, and now we had tons of rain, but now it's cool, there's a breeze, it's good growing weather. So today I wanted to talk to you about the things that I have learnt in this first 6 months of being a newbie market farmer and flower farm grower. And they're things that I think that anybody starting to think about setting up an enterprise like this need to know. And hopefully you can learn from my experience what not to do and what to try and do. And we're not going to talk about the selling process of market farms or the harvesting. We're going to kind of talk about more of the setup and also the mental mindset you need to have. And while we're doing it, I'm just going to walk you around and show you where I've got to this year. And it's not very far, but we'll get into that. So number one is you need way more seeds than you can ever imagine. If you're growing at home and you're just growing for pleasure in your garden, then a packet of sunflowers, a packet of dahlias, a couple of packets of radishes, more than enough. It's going to supply you with overkill probably, and you'll be picking like crazy. If you're doing it commercially, you need a lot more seeds. Now this sounds really obvious, and it sounded really obvious to me. So at the start of the season I bought loads of seeds, and for example I bought 300 sunflowers. I thought, oh, 300 sunflowers, there's going to be sunflowers everywhere. And then as I started sowing them, I suddenly thought, right, how am I going to sell these? Oh, I'm going to sell them in bunches of 10. Well, it's quick and easy math. If I've got 300 sunflowers and I'm selling them in bunches of 10, that is only 30 bunches. And even if I price those bunches at £10, well, that's only £300. That is not going to make me very much money. So, and also I should say, of those 300 sunflowers, that is on the proviso that every single seed germinates, every single seed comes up, grows and produces a beautiful bloom. That ain't gonna happen. So you've got to buy way more seeds than you thought. And while we're on the subject of way more seeds, that also transfers to way more actual plug plants. For example, over here, oh, what's this down here? I've just found a random thing. For example, over here, I had 5 trays of lettuces at home, and I thought, yes, that will do a load of beds. And I came down and I transplanted them the other day, and it didn't even reach the end of the bed. So yes, this is quite a lot of lettuces, but commercially, when I start to pick, when I harvest, and when I'm starting to bag up, and of course you're not bagging up really 1 bag a day, you're going to harvest and you're going to bag up a load of bags to take to a market or put on a market stall. You need a lot more plants than you might think. Number 2 is you must have a growing space for your seedlings. I made a huge mistake with this. I had a polytunnel, but it blew away in the winter, and I didn't have the funds to get a commercial polytunnel together. And you might grow stuff at home on windowsills and in a grow room, and we all have to make do with what we have. But a massive factor for me this year in not having the plants to put out has been the weather, and because of the weather, the lack of space to grow. So you can see down here I am finally starting to get my commercial polytunnel up. So next year I can sow all those trays of plants I can have them at home if necessary just to get them going, but as soon as they get going, I can bring them and keep them safe from the weather in the polytunnel. This year I didn't have that, so I had a spare room just filled with trays of seedlings. They then started to get too big, but the weather was terrible, so they couldn't come outside, so I was trying to move everything in and out constantly, and it just didn't work. I lost a lot of seedlings. They didn't grow very well. Because I haven't got the polytunnel up, I still have about 500 tomatoes at home in tiny pots, and they really need to go into bigger pots, and they really need to go into the ground, and it has been a bit of a nightmare, and it's definitely set me back. Because again, if the weather is perfect and you have a perfect winter and then a perfect spring where you can sow everything and then you can move it out and you don't have to worry about frosts or pests, it's fine. But when you have a horrible spring like we've had, which was super dry, then super cold, then super wet, then super warm, it's not ideal to seed growing at all. And because this is a virgin site and there is a ton of pests, I also cannot direct sow very much because they just get destroyed. So I have to grow little plug plants into a decent size, so they've got a decent root ball to go in, which if you don't have the space to do, it's very stressful and you lose a lot of stuff. So when you're coming into this, you really must think about where you're going to grow all of these things on in a non-perfect world. You know, as I said, in a perfect world, you pop the seeds in, they pop their little heads up, then it's warm enough outside, you move your trays outside, no pests come along and eat them, and then as soon as they get big enough, you put them into the ground. Mostly it's not a perfect world. As market farmers and flower farmers, we are very under the hammer in terms of the weather and also the wildlife. So ahead of your growing season, if you can get a polytunnel, or you can get like a growing shed, one of those potting sheds, or you've got a room at home where you can set up a decent grow lights rack system, highly worthwhile, will take a lot of the stress off you, because sowing loads of things, seeing them come up, having that joy, and then they all fail is very, very disheartening. So yeah, number 2, make sure you've got some grow space for your actual seedlings. Number 3 is do not underestimate the power of pests. Now you know that I tell it how it is on this channel and I don't try and make it all rosy. I have not had a single solitary crop that has not been affected by pests. That has been soul destroying on many levels. And I'm not just talking about little pests like woodlice and slugs and snails. I'm talking about bigger pests, especially if you're doing it in the countryside like I am. Birds, deer, squirrels. We have had all manner of problems. So for example, many of you will know from a video that I transplanted loads of my kale and loads of my chard, and for the course of 4 or 5 days, stuff came along and pulled all of those plugs out of the ground. So every morning I had shriveled up, and it was also during the drought here, so every morning I came up to pulled out transplants with the shriveled up dried roots because they'd lain on black plastic soaking up the sun, and were dead. And that is why you can see here we have many holes where kale plants got pulled out. Of course, you find a solution for these things, and the solution to this was I now know that I need to use sticks on transplants, which is why here we have our lettuces with sticks over it, and that just inhibits the opportunity for things to come in and pull them out. And I worked out that it was actually the rooks. The baby rooks were all fledging, and at that time the entire rookery was coming across to the garden in the morning and finding food and grubs and stuff, and that meant pulling these out of the ground. It's now past, but you can see that I now use sticks on everything until it's rooted in, and then I take them off. Over in the flower farm, slugs, major menace. I have lost count of the number of straw flowers and snaps I've lost. You know, this straw flower row was originally 2 rows deep the whole way down. You can see there are loads of holes. The same with the snaps. The snaps just were 2 rows deep all the way down, lost a lot of plants. So really do not underestimate pests, because they can be an absolute pain. And even if they don't kill your vegetables, something I've just discovered here is that we have an issue with flea beetle. So my radishes, this is my first test trial of radish bed. They've come up quite nicely, but look at the leaves. Absolutely peppered in holes. Now, flea beetles don't eat the actual radish, but they make the leaves look horrible. And there's actually one right there eating. Can you see it here? And there it goes. That's why it's called a flea beetle, because they jump like fleas. And they have done everything. So for my birthday, Sard actually bought me some of this fine mesh. So I've got more radishes that I've sown down here, and I've just lain this mesh over as to try and kind of help these seedlings ward off the flea beetles. But another issue, just don't underestimate it. One of the reasons my ranunculus failed so badly was they got slugged in the winter, and then I took them out of the polytunnel to try and dry them out in the sun, and that night a muntjac deer came along and ate all the leaves off them. So assess your site, do a risk assessment, think, right, what is around, what could possibly come and destroy my crops. Now, I do this with animals all the time, and I really feel like one of the reasons I'm so successful with livestock is I am always double guessing what could happen. So I'm kind of one step ahead. So fly strike, for instance, I'm always aware, fly strike, fly strike, fly strike. So I'm always checking the animals. Whenever I have baby animals, I've heard many horror stories of baby animals getting drowned because in their maternity pens they've got big water dishes and things. So I never ever leave animals with babies in a place with a big steel drinker, for example, because I've seen it happen. I've seen babies get in there and drown. I need to be more like that with the flower and the vegetable crops, and kind of forward think what could go wrong. But yes, do not underestimate pests and what they can do and how quickly they can destroy your hard work. So there are 3 physical things that you can be doing, and the next one is a mental health tip, and it is, do not pressure yourself to have everything wonderful the first year. That's called being a Jeffrey. And it really, really isn't a good thing to do. So for any of you that have watched this channel for any length of time or been on my social media, you will know that I do battle with mental health issues, and I'm very open about the fact that I have major anxiety and depression, and the smallest thing can send me into a downward spiral. So perhaps starting a market farm garden and being self-employed wasn't a fabulous idea, but I love it, so I'm doing it. But I came in with this notion of, yes, I'm leaving my job, I'm going to my inherited farmland, and it's going to be fab. And the reality is, it takes a lot of work. It's hard work, even if you've got loads of experience. So just take the pressure off yourself to do amazing things instantly, because it won't always happen. Like, here is my flower farm patch, right? It's mid-June, it's almost July. In my mind, this should be awash with blooms. I should be picking huge bouquets. I should be selling them for £20 and everybody loves it. The reality is, I have a few cornflowers, I have a few sweet peas, The ranunculus really kind of failed. The straw flowers are doing very, very well, I should say, and they're getting their first buds on them. And a tip from my friend Sarah over on Instagram, and I'm going to link her Instagram in the description below because it's amazing. She is a flower farmer. Is that these first straw flower buds are the best for picking and drying. So don't pinch your straw flowers out. Wait till they get this big long stem, cut that stem, and that can be your dried flower, and then they will send up bundles and bundles and bundles of new flowers. Oh look, hello Mr. Bee, little bumblebee. These are my cornflowers. I've got black ball. This is on blue boy. I think there might have been a mix-up in the packet, or maybe blue boy and black ball had a little menage, because this is neither blue ball or black ball or pink boy. So it's very pretty, but it's violet in colour. But getting back to the point, because I have gone off on a tangent, pressure. Take the pressure off. It's advice that I need to heed. It's advice that I need to think about every single day when I come up. Because in your year one, again, whether you have been growing for years and years and years, it's not going to be all, you know, roses and butterflies. We look at Instagram, we look at social media and YouTube, and we see all these other flower farmers doing amazing things, but they've been doing it for years. Your garden is not going to look that amazing that quickly. If it does, you are very lucky and you are very, very well skilled. But for the most of us who are kind of building the experience up, it's not an instant success. So take the pressure off yourself to be amazing instantly. And on that point of taking the pressure off of being perfect instantly is my fifth mental health tip, is that persevere. Don't give up. It is so easy just to be like, oh, I feel like a failure, this isn't working, but just persevere. I was talking to my husband Saad earlier about it, and sort of saying, you know, I feel there are days when I feel a bit like a fraud. Like, here I am on YouTube talking about my market garden and nothing's gone right. And he was like, look, come on, Jeff. So he's a taxidermist, and he said to me, Jeff, when I started doing taxidermy, it looked like crap taxidermy. It looked awful. I felt horrible. I would spend hours and hours and hours making these beautiful things that then looked like it was a bird that had been run over. But now, a year on, he's persevered, and his taxidermy is incredible. And I'm not biased in saying that because he's had lots of accolades from other people. But it is something that we all need to remember. Again, even if you've been growing for years, moving from amateur gardening, growing some veg, to setting up a commercial market farm and flower farm, especially on a new site where you don't know how the aspect is going to be, the weather's going to be, the pests are going to be, you just need to persevere. So, you know, next year things will be very, very different, and I will have faith that it will be better. And that takes me nicely to our sixth and final tip, and that is, if there is any conceivable way to do it, have a test year. I keep saying to myself, this is a test year, this is a test year, this is a test year, and take the pressure off, take the pressure off, take the pressure off, because I need to remind myself of these things. Because am I expecting to make loads of money this year selling these products? No, because this is complete test year. So I would highly advise, if you, especially again, if you've moved to a brand new site, you're starting it for the first time, you're learning about the site, about the pests, about the weather, about the saleable market in your area, that you have a test year. And that means that you can't count on finances coming from your farm for that year. So you need to either have a part-time job, Or as we did, we sold our house, so we had some equity in the bank so we didn't have to be financially strained. That didn't quite work out. That's an entire different story. But get some financial backing behind yourself, or perhaps you're in a relationship where you can say to one person, look, I really want to do this. Is there any way that I can step back from my job, my financial commitment to our family, get this going, and then we'll reassess in a year? So just really, really try and have a test year, and don't have too many expectations, because I have learned so much in this past 6 months about setting this farm up that I already know next year will be way better, because I now know some of the things I need to buy, I need to have in place for the starting of the seeds. I've learned how some of the pests on this farm work. So I highly encourage you, if you can, have a test season, have a test few months, just so you can kind of learn and take the pressure off yourself in instantly hitting the ground and running and being highly successful.